of you who are watching the playback, this is the beginning for you. We've been going for about 20 minutes, so apologies. I promise we're not going to start all over again. But let me just say, I'm Evelyn from Magellan College Counseling. I'm here with Lesa Weber, who is my colleague, and Joon Kim, who advises college students on their applications to medical school. Let's just go from there, and I apologize.
To me, they never say, I want to be a doctor. They come in with very specific ideas. I want to be an orthopedic surgeon.
Oh.
Or I want to be a neurosurgeon.
Right.
Or I want to be, they already have their specialty in mind. It's very, very interesting.
So,
and it goes back to my statement about they have been through a struggle, or a family member has been through a struggle. They already have it pegged what they want to do, which is so interesting to me, because
what they want to be is related to what they've been through, which makes sense.
Yes.
But Lesa, here's something that two actually things that are interesting to me that we haven't talked about. You are a dentist. You are trained as a dentist.
Yes.
And then you worked in the field of public health. So I've worked with a handful of students who say they want to be dentists, and it's because their parents are dentists.
Okay.
So when did you know you wanted to be a dentist? And then can you tell us about public health? Because I feel like public health kind of flies under the radar and people don't really know what it is.
Right, right. So interestingly enough, I really thought I wanted to be a dentist when I was about a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
And how I kind of pursued that is I became a dental assistant in the summers during high school, and worked for my dentist, and then every summer, and then during college, during the summers that I came home, and I still liked it. It was kind of like, you know, I would tell people that and they would be totally grossed out, and I was never grossed out. And so I learned not only the kind of the medical aspect of it, the dental aspect of it, but also the business side of it, right? And so I really kind of knew what I was getting into, so to speak.
Interesting.
And got a great letter of recommendation. And, you know, so that's kind of how I learned the ropes. The public health side of it was really interesting because I worked in the hospital and had to take call and all of those things that you typically don't do. Hospital dentistry is what I did, basically. And that was really interesting and great, and something that I wouldn't do in a private practice, even though I did private practice after my public health. But I got to see working as in a community, and I got to see how you would treat a community looking at the public health perspective, and kind of looking at what we're going through now. And, you know, from a public health view, it's really been interesting to see how we're handling this from a public health view. So yeah, it was a great experience. It was really a great experience.
Joon, have you ever worked with students? So you work at a post-baccalaureate program, which is really for college students who, I'm trying to be gentle, didn't do everything they needed to do to be competitive for medical school.
We could call them late bloomers.
We sometimes
refer to late bloomers. You know, people who like to enjoy the journey, not in a rush to get to the end.
Not in a rush.
So these are students that finished their undergraduate, so they have a baccalaureate degree, but they're just not competitive. I mean, they're just falling a little short. And again, you know, can we all agree that not all the physicians out there who are practicing medicine today were all straight A or even A average students?
Sure.
So, you know, the path is rarely a straight line. It could be maybe a quick zigzag, or it might be a meandering loop and back and forth. And I mean, when you're talking, Lesa, about public health, I just spoke to one of my former students who I was her advisor back when I was at USC. She's now in a doctor of public health program on the East Coast. And so one of the things with public health is the way we differentiate public health versus like going into a clinical program like PA or, you know, physician, is that public health, you're more interested in sort of the community and the macro aspect. You want to impact change sort of on a larger scale. Yeah. Whereas if you're going to as a clinical route, it is one patient at a time. Right. You can't, do 3 root canals at the same time, but you can go into public health to educate your youth or your seniors about how to prevent having to get root canals. So it's again, generalizations, but it's a great start to having your students start trying to figure out and narrow down. Sometimes, process of elimination. If you know that you really don't want to do a whole lot of talking, more, less consultation, more using your hands. Okay, that's a good place to start. So let's look at some health professions where you do get to use your hands. Dentists, you cannot be a dentist if you don't want to work with your hands.
Right.
A podiatrist, same thing. When you're working on their feet, you have to use your hands. Yep. You cannot remove an ingrown toenail or help treat a bunion just by looking at it. You got to take your hands. Yeah. Right, exactly. So these are some of the early ways you can start to, it's a funnel, right? You just kind of start big and you want to go into the health professions, and then you kind of start to narrow it down further and further. And
when I'm in college, okay, so a couple questions. So first of all, I feel like there's a huge myth out there that if you want to be pre-med, you have to be a biology major. You must major in biology. Total myth, yes?
Yes, it's an absolute myth. In fact, some of most successful students I've worked with, anthropology major, philosophy major, oh my goodness, music composition major.
Oh, wow.
A student who was a music composition major. All you really need are the prerequisites, right? So it's 1 year of biology, 1 year of general chem, 1 year of organic chem, 1 year of physics, and 1 year of mathematics, which is usually a combination of statistics and some type of calculus, pre-calc, or something like that.
Well, and so here's the next question. When I'm a pre-med, so say I'm a literature major, just because I like literature, but I'm getting some pre-med advising, and I'm, taking all the prerequisite classes. Is there advising that directs me to that kind of self-exploration that you were just talking about? I'm not really good with my hands. Right. So what kind of doctor would I be heading to be?
Radiologist.
Radiologist. Or pathologists. Pathologists have very little interaction.
They look at a microscope, right?
Yes, they're very much in the lab.
But is a college pre-med advising, staff going to ask me these kinds of questions so I can really start to think about? I mean, I know you don't have to specialize until you get to medical school.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, Evelyn, that goes back to you as a student doing your research on the college, right? So you need to really look into the schools. Do they even have a pre-health advising department?
Right.
Or do they just have advisors? Right. And you're getting and say you're majoring in, like you said, literature. So you get your literature advisor. Do they even know how to advise you for pre-med?
Right.
So you need to make sure that you get a pre-health advisor, or they have pre-health advising, or they have that department. So that's where it all goes back into your research, and you've got to make the time, make the effort, or hire Magellan Counseling to help you, to show you how to do research and find out how to find the resources. Do they have the resources available for the student? Yes.
Yeah. That right there, what you just said, Lesa, about the undergrad institution and pre-health advising, that right there is just like the most precious and valuable advice from this whole recording, right there in of itself. And this is what I see often. So students will choose a school because they have this pretty renowned medical school.
Right.
But how does that indicate the support that you're going to get, you as an undergraduate, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, to even get there?
Right.
And then let's not even talk about how the culture of the different med schools, they might like their own students, they might not. I mean, that's a question that I'm sure you all get as well. Yeah. So, looking at a school, when I was working at USC, I started to see more and more students and families asking and considering that as a variable when they're determining which colleges to attend. Is there pre-health advising support? I mean, not that that makes all the difference in the world, but it could. It absolutely makes a difference. I mean, the student can just meander around for 4 years, lost, and then it turns out that had they worked closely with someone, that they would have avoided all that extra time and heartache. So, and certainly while we would like to think that the prestige or the reputation of an institution is correlated with the pre-health advising, it's actually not. In fact, without having to get into specific names, some of the most obscure schools have amazing advising support. And the ratio is such that the advisor gets to know all their students. So if I have a question on a student, I can pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I got one of your students here. And they'll know exactly who I'm talking about. They'll tell me what the student's first name, middle name, last name, favorite food and color. I mean, whereas if I call a large school, it's like they're just one of many thousands. And so not only that, they might not even appropriate that.
We don't shy away from saying names here. So everyone knows this about me. I have a lifetime right to pick on Johns Hopkins. I am an alum. I paid a lot of money for that right. So perfect example. If you're an undergraduate at Johns Hopkins, there's no guarantee you're getting into Hopkins Med. They take Hopkins Med happens to be a very small class. It's 120 students. They take 10% of their class is Hopkins undergrads. That's 12 people out of a graduating class of 12 to 1,300. It's 1%. Now it's twice as many as they take from Harvard, and it's twice as many as they take from Stanford, but it's 12 people.
I guess, I mean, this is where I could provide some constructive feedback to my alma mater. I mean, UCLA. UCLA Geffen is one of the top med schools. But in terms of their advising, they just have too many students, and they really need to bolster up and provide the support for the students. I mean, you get so many students who are lost. In fact, I would say UCLA almost every year without fail is our largest fee into our program.
Right. Okay, so here's another interesting question that has to do with the advising, the quality of the advising you get. And it's a question that we ask when we go visit college campuses, but I don't think families know to ask this. So there is a process when you're applying to medical school from college that most colleges have a committee, and they will interview students and they will provide a letter of recommendation, right? So the question that we ask is, do you provide a letter of recommendation for everyone who applies to medical school, or do you basically like filter out the people that the committee, basically doesn't support? And how important is that, Joon?
So first of all, yes, there are such things as called committee letters. Those are like, some people think of it as a super letter, because what it does is take individual letters and aggregates and succinctly provides a cover letter that's been synthesized. So if a college institution has a committee letter system, then you really want to get one, because that sort of serves as the filter, the quality control. And yes, there are some cutoff. I can't imagine a reputable, functioning committee, letter writing committee to write a letter for a 2.3 student, for example. It doesn't help the students, it doesn't help the committee, it doesn't help the institution at all. So there are some, for example, one of the most common requirements, besides the obvious grades and so forth, but is an interview. They want to interview the student before they write a letter on their behalf. And you also have to understand, and I'm sure we can all agree, that the reputation of the letter writer is huge, because if you have someone who writes, this student is amazing and awesome, for every single student that they write, they start to lose their credibility, and you're basically crying wolf, like Peter. And so, you have to be very honest in these letters, and you have to, provide the good and even some weaknesses. I mean, some of the weaknesses have to be real. They cannot be the student tries too hard, they care too much is another one that I sometimes see.
Really?
Caring to a fault. But yeah, I mean, I think we all know about some of these questions, like, describe a weakness, but yep.
Is it better? How does a college student get to know who's on that committee? Like, how do you really get a good committee letter?
Working very closely with the pre-health advisor. The pre-health advisor will guide them, and they will tell them, these are the things that you should prepare now, so it's not a big surprise later on when you're a junior, senior, coming back to us asking for a letter. So having that relationship with the advisor is so important. I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to make or break and everything rides on that, because again, the majority of the fate and the future is on the student, right? But boy, could that advisor and the support and the guidance make a difference. Because, for example, for me, as the first in my family to go to college here in the US, my family immigrated here. My parents didn't even speak English. And so what was my source? And back in my days, we didn't even have the internet. So I can't even Google anything. So how was I supposed to find and get this information? And we talked a little bit about, Lisa talked about the networking, you know, to get some clinical opportunities. No, my networking led to selling shoes and women's clothes. So like, you know, that makes a huge difference for students.
Has either of you ever seen a student, high school or college, who has said to you, I want to be a doctor, and you just know this, you don't? No, you don't.
How long is this session? Because I don't think we have enough time to cover all of these. You know,
I've seen a lot change their major.
Sure.
That I thought would change their major, and they did end up changing their major.
Right. And go a completely different direction?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I mean, like I said, undergrad I was a poli-sci major at Johns Hopkins. I personally never changed my major, but I had a lot of friends who started as engineers and ended up as, you know, art history majors.
Yeah. First semester freshman.
Yeah, organic chemistry is not fun.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It's a weed out. Yeah. I mean, and we want it to be that way, right? We want our doctors to kind of get the whole chemistry thing, right?
Right. Or at least have the stamina to get through it.
Right.
Well, I am a 28-year recovering pre-med myself.
There
I'm
you
biology
go.
Pre-med, and yeah, I really didn't know what I was getting into. I mean, I loved how they appeared in movies and TV shows. I mean, it looks really cool. I think I look good in scrubs. I think they're very comfortable. I mean, who wouldn't want to wear comfortable clothes to work? But once I really sort of started getting involved, so it was the summer before my junior, so rising junior, which is actually rather late. I started to do some volunteer at my local hospital. And what I realized is that is not where I want to be. I mean, it's just, I am not in my environment. And again, sort of the way I sometimes explain it to students and parents is like, you know, if your son or daughter loves to play sports, you know, they might want to play a certain position, but they're really good at this other position. And a great coach would recognize that and say, hey, listen, you know, I know you want to play this position, but we could sure use you over here. I mean, you really would be fantastic. We can win some championships with you in that position. And that's kind of how what happens is that students, you know, think that that's what they want. And then through experience, through gaining more information, they'll start to come around, hopefully. Sometimes the grades and GPA sometimes choose that for them, which even then, I'm a firm believer. I mean, you could have the most horrible GPA, the lowest GPA that I've ever worked with. This person was a 2.3 undergrad GPA, and now they're finishing up their residency. So it's like, that's why America's amazing. You know, you always have all these additional opportunities. You take classes at community college, transfer, take some classes again at a community college and apply to graduate school. I mean, there's so many routes to get there.
Yeah. I love that you said, I mean, I love the analogy though of I really want to be a shortstop, but you know what, I got a killer arm and you put me in the outfield and I can throw it all the way home. I mean, that's the value of mentorship. And so to me, that's a couple things. It's the value of mentorship. It's also the value of respecting not just what a student wants, but exploring what they're good at and not putting anyone else's expectations on, layering those on top of that. And for parents, again, you know, knowing who watches our, you know, these videos that we're making, that's really hard. You know, if your little girl has always been good at science since she was 4 and, you know, won the science fair and, you know, likes to build the volcanoes with the bubbling in the middle, and you think that she's destined to be an orthopedic surgeon, as you said, Lisa. I used to do tabling for Johns Hopkins, and I had a boy come up to my table one time. He was in 9th grade, and he said, "I want to be an otolaryngologist." I was like, I don't even know what that is.
I was laughing earlier because I made that volcano in 6th grade.
We all made that volcano. I've got one going in my kitchen right now, but it's hard to separate the expectations that you have for your child from the human being that they are turning into and growing into. And, you know, as you let them fly the nest and they go away to college, they're going to change even more. And this is really hard. You know, June, you have young kids at home. This is going to be really hard for you when your kids decide they don't want to be doctors, right?
Yes. Well, I already know there's a really good chance. I have a 16-year-old. She's going to be a rising junior this year. I know she's not going to go anywhere near the sciences.
Yep.
And I'm okay with that. You know, I think her strengths are probably in the arts, more creative and more with her hands, kind of producing things. So I can see her maybe go business, entrepreneurial, maybe film production, something like that. My son, on the other hand, he's 13, so he's got a little bit more time. I can see him going into the sciences, but I don't know if I see him like in a clinical use of the science. I can see him maybe going into research. I think he has a stronger affinity towards finding answers as opposed to, you know, relieving someone's pain and ailment. So, but again, that could change, right? I mean, we humans, we change.
Right.
Right. Unfortunately, that goes for my hair too, because I'm getting more gray. Hopefully, we Photoshop this out, please.
Black from this side. It's all good. The bottom line then, if you are a high school student thinking about pre-med, what are the top, 2 or 3 things that you should be thinking about at this point? Because it sounds like once you get to college, what you should really be thinking about is finding some really good mentors and advisors to get you to that next stage. But Lesa, let's just rewind a little bit to more the kids that we see.
Sure. So, well, grades. You got to focus on your grades, right? So that you have lots of options for the schools that you want to attend. And then really research what you think you want to do, and how you can research that is by talking to people that are in the professions that you think that you want to explore, and shadow those people in their professions. And if that's not available to you, then try to volunteer in an area as close to that you can get, whether that be at the hospital, at an office, at a veterinary clinic, at an animal shelter, at, a dentist's office, in an area that, and if you're not doing the glamorous job, if you're filing, if you're cleaning up something, that's okay. You're in that environment, you're networking, you're making contacts with people that are, and you never know what that next job or that next opportunity will be just because you've been in that environment. So those are a couple of things that I would suggest that they do. And then do research online. There is a YouTube for everything. So you want to be an orthopedic surgeon, you can probably find a surgery on YouTube. Yeah. Watch it. Yep. Explore YouTube. See what is available. And then the universities have all kinds of things, anything from a tour to, they may be hosting all kinds of medical school events online. Yep. So those would be my suggestions at this point.
Actually, it's an interesting point. We keep talking about the drawbacks of where we are now with COVID, but the benefit is that colleges have put everything online. You could take a tour of, I'm thinking of 3 different colleges who I've been in their brand new science center in the last couple of years. They probably have walkthroughs of their science centers, up online, and you should do those walkthroughs. Is there any benefit, if you're a high school student, is there any benefit to reaching out to a professor in the biology department who maybe does some sort of research that you might have an interest in?
I think absolutely, especially if you have a specific question or, about a specific area. I'm really interested in this part of your research. Yep. Do a little background research before you just contact somebody out of the blue. Right. Many of them are published, of course. So, check on their publications, read a little bit about what they've done, and then you're going to have some questions. and then ask a question about what is interesting about that.
I'm actually going to share my screen for just a minute, and because this is honestly something that we do, June, we do this with our high school students, you know, who say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a whatever. We say, great, let's figure out what being a biology major is going to look like, right? You think you want to be a biology major. So this is the homepage of the University of Denver, right? So let's figure out how many clicks it takes me to get here. I'm going to go to try to find the biology department. Let's see, biological sciences in the College of Natural Sciences. Let's see, there's the BA and the BS. And I'm going to click explore. So I'm going to go to the department. So here I am at the department. And I'm going to find this thing that says people. So literally, you guys, it's almost always here. Either it's called people or faculty. And that's who we're looking for. Let's look at the faculty. Here they all are. And you can actually tell how big a department it is by how many faculty there are. This seems like a pretty big department to me, right? So let's pick someone randomly. Although here, this is actually fabulous. It tells you where they got their degree. It tells you what they got their degree in. Okay, so look, this guy got his PhD in integrative biology at UC Berkeley. Let's go to his profile. I already like Professor Nichols because he has really funky glasses. But look at this. Here's his background. Here's his research. Here's his publications. What I do. I'm an assistant professor of evolutionary cell biology. What does that mean? Let's see what his research is all about. Here we go. Our research focuses on the earliest events in animal evolution. How did cells first organize into tissues? How did cell and tissue types, such as epithelium, muscles, and neurons evolve? To address these questions, we study non-traditional animal models with, I'm going to need your help, you guys, key phylogenetic. What does that mean?
Got it.
What does that mean?
Well, it has to do with genetics, obviously. Philo. It's been a while.
Phylogenetic. We focus on sponges, and we have a keen interest in another word that I have no idea what that means because it has a C and then an N right next to it.
I remember that from Intrabonidarians. So it's I believe it's a classification of certain organisms.
Okay. Placozoans and ctenophores. I did not know there were so many in silent C's in the English language. Current projects in the lab. Okay, this is super important. The evolution of epithelial organization and the origin of cell adhesion polarity complexes. Like, I have my high schoolers read through this and see if they understand it. Look at this. Our research centers around the belief that curiosity-driven fundamental research is key to innovation and discovery. Like, I already like him. But, you know, if you have a question, look, his website is here, his email is here, his office phone number is right here. Here's all the times he's been, well, just featured publications. But you can get so much information just by reading the, let's find a girl, we need a girl. Here we go. Nope, here we go, Dr.
So I cheated, and phylogenetics is the scientific study of phylogeny, which pertains to the evolutionary history of taxonomic group of organisms.
Okay. I mean, if I were interested in biology, I would know what that means, right?
You would.
So here we go. So this is Dr. Erica Larson. Here's a link to her lab. Here's her research and her publications. Let's see, where did she get her degrees? Professional associate to the University of Montana. PhD at Cornell. So hi, she's no slouch. She got her bachelor's in biology at Western Washington University. By the way, this in itself, and I just want you guys to know, we didn't pre-select the professors that I'm picking. I'm literally picking at random, okay? This is someone who went to Western Washington University. It's not hard to get into Western Washington University. Let's just go with that. And she got her PhD from an Ivy League university, okay? So it is entirely possible. You know, people say, the reason I say that is people say to us all the time, no one's ever heard of Western Washington University. You know who has heard of Western Washington University? Cornell University. They've heard of it. So it's entirely possible for you to get into. June, you said you worked with a student with a 2 point what and got into medical school?
2.3. It was below 2.5. It
was below a 2.5, right? So if you have an interest in evolutionary biology and you would like to study with not old, you know, a nice young female professor, maybe the University of Denver would be a really good choice for you, right?
I was going to say this, I actually have a student in mind who's really into evolution and biology,
Yeah.
and this is looking right up
They're out, right? That's the thing. And so when we have, I'm going to stop sharing, but you get the point. When we have the luxury of having the time to work with them, and, you know, we'll throw out lots of options of colleges no one's heard of, right? Because people have heard of the University of Denver.
Right.
And we really dig, like, what does being a biology major look like? Whose research, you know, whose lab are you going to research in? Who will be your mentors? And the next question that I get, because I agree with you, Lesa, I think there's definitely a benefit. Reach out to a professor if you have an interest. But the next question that a high school student's going to ask me is that going to help me get in? Is she going to call the admission office and tell them that I have an interest? And here's the answer. It's kind of like when you say to your teacher, is this going to be on the test? No. It's not going to help you get in. But it's like Lesa said, it's you networking. It's a good skill for you to pick up now when you're 17, 18 years old, is, you know, read up where you're going to be in advance, ask some questions, even when it doesn't get you, you know, an extra brownie point, even if it's still good in general. This takes time though. It takes time to, you know, send these emails and build these relationships, but
it's all about building a relationship. And I think sometimes as a high school, maybe 17-year-old,
yeah.
that's something that they don't really think about.
Yeah.
And it may be that they're not thinking about getting a PhD at Cornell, right?
Right.
And so they may be interested in this, and contacting this professor may just be the start, right? And then they start to have a relationship. And then who knows, maybe 3 years down the line, as an undergraduate, they start to think, you know what, maybe I don't want to go to medical school.
Right.
Maybe I do want to get my PhD. And maybe I want to go to Cornell. Maybe this relationship with this professor at the University of Denver that I have now, I can talk to them about that.
Yep, exactly. And then down the road, Joon, you know, how does that position me better once I get there?
So I don't know if this directly answers it, but it's what's coming to my mind. One of the things that happens very frequently is students will tell the med school, this is what I'm passionate about. I mean, you know, students tell what their passion is, but, you know, they'll smile and say, oh, wonderful. And then the first thing they're going to do is to see what you did. Does your extracurricular activity involvement support that claim that you were passionate about serving the disadvantaged and underrepresented communities? And when they look and all they see is research, or maybe working in a plastic surgical, you know, dermatology office, I mean, does it corroborate what the student is claiming? So from like at the undergraduate level, what I would say is, listen, if you think that's your passion, jump on it and establish a record of demonstrating that passion. Because when you're applying and you tell them until you can turn blue in the face that that's your passion, but they're not going to believe you. Clearly they look and there's nothing there that corroborates that.
Yeah, you have to show it. This may sound like a really weird question. Do either of you feel like the pre-med or pre-health path has a little bit of a bias in favor of extroverts?
Well, certainly the interviews kind of lean that way, especially now that they're doing what's basically a speed dating format known as a multi-mini interview, where they're speaking to 5, 7, 10, maybe even 12 different interviewers. I mean, you got to transition from one person to the next. And I think some students, it's to their advantage to do a traditional interview where they sit down with somebody and, you know, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you know, warm up to that person. So I do think there are certain situations where it does favor the extrovert. But I think med schools are doing a really good job of recognizing that. And that's why, you know, they will maybe do a hybrid. They might do a one-on-one and then also do a little short, you know, 5-station multi-mini interview format. So, I mean, you know, admission committees are pretty sophisticated. They know that there's really amazing introverts out there, just as there's pretty bad extroverts out there.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on accelerate? This is going to be my last question because we've been going for an hour at this point. Do you have any thoughts on accelerated 7 or 8 year BA MD programs and the 4 people they admit every year?
Yeah, I do. I think that there are absolutely students that can do well in those programs. So for me to generalize this is probably not fair.
Yeah.
But I think that it's probably not great. I think if you think about a 17-year-old, the typical 17-year-old, which I know this would be an atypical student that would be in this program, but I just think that there is so much growth and maturity that happens between the ages of 18 and 22, 23. I just, and I also am all about having a college experience. I just think that there is so much about having a college experience. And so I really do wish that there were more people that would just have that 4-year undergrad and then the medical school experience instead of that 6-year program.
Yeah. Joon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so those are having actually advised for that baccalaureate MD program during my tenure at USC.
Yeah.
There's some students that clearly, they know what they want to do, and it's a great fit for them. But I think there's also a lot of students where, the sunk cost phenomenon is very real.
Yes.
This idea that I've come too far and this is such an amazing opportunity, I don't want to blow it or I don't want to give it up, and they're just kind of stuck, if you will. And so I think you just got to be very careful, very honest, have that honest conversation if that is the best fit. Because from the institutional perspective, it is nice because it's one of the best ways to compete and recruit some of the brightest and best students.
Sure.
But from the student's perspective, is committing to something that big, right? So 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school. So 3 years is the shortest medical residency, with about the longest being 7 years. So we're talking 4 plus 4, 8 plus 7, 15 years, possibly 15 years of their life. Can they really make that decision?
Yeah.
And again, it varies. There might be some individuals that can, but none of my kids.
That's a long road. It's a very long road when you put it that way. All right. Well, you guys have been fabulous, and you've given us a lot to think about. And for the parents watching, the pre-med path, as you've just heard, is long and a little torturous. But if your kid is that kid, that empathetic, it's not just about loving science, it's about loving people and wanting to help people, and not just your grandmother, but other people. That if you have that special kid, guess what? For the first time in my lifetime, I honestly think we are at a point where we are appreciating our medical professionals in a way that we never ever have, and literally calling them heroes. So, so if your child is one of the ones who's going to take that path, then we say thank you for that. Yeah. If anyone wants to get in touch, feel free to check out our website. We did just post, for those of you who are class of 2021 parents, we just posted a little information for a couple of options that we have to work with us this fall, including one that's a little more budget friendly than our, start with us in 10th grade package. So we invite you to take a look at that. But Lesa, as always, nice to see you, and thank you. Joon, always nice to see you.
Inviting me. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure.
Thank you. Love
Joon,
talking shop.
Fabulous to see you. You do love talking shop. I literally refer anytime a former client comes back to me and says, do you know a med school advisor? I say, go to Joon. That's who I send it to. So thanks everyone for joining us. We are going to call it a night, and we'll see you next Thursday.